Good morning, Northeast Iowa. I'm in a field of soybeans this morning, and I've been getting some calls from people that are wanting to know what they're seeing out in soybean fields. So I went out here this morning to take a look, and there are a few things that are starting to show up towards the end of this season. One is what we call just the turning of the soybean plant, or maturing. And so I'm actually standing in a field here where I have two varieties behind me. One's like a 1.9 or a 2.0, which is an earlier soybean variety. One is a 2.2, just a couple days later. But at this time of the year, you really start seeing a difference. And so this is the later maturing soybean. It's a little bit darker, greener. This is earlier maturing soybean. And the leaves are just starting to turn a little bit lighter green, but continue to fall, continue to senesce back and drop off. And so one of the things we're seeing is just natural senescence of the plant. And oftentimes we think that maybe there's some disease there or something else affecting the soybeans, when in reality it's just a soybean plant starting to go through the natural process of senescing back to prepare to fill pods and be ready for harvest. The other thing we're seeing is an infection called sudden death syndrome, or more commonly known as SDS. With SDS, the conditions that favor that is early wet and humid conditions are just saturated soils in the early vegetative stage. So in May, early June, it's favorable if you're planting early. It'll have a tendency, the fusarium infection will infect the plant early. And then later on in the season, if we have wet, saturated soils during flowering, and then extended warm, dry weather, we could see foliar symptoms showing that fusarium is infecting the plant a little bit to do some damage. What that looks like is what we commonly call, in common terms, we call it tiger striping. More technical terms, it's called interveinal chlorosis, which basically is showing the photosynthetic or the greener material in between the veins is starting to be necrotic or show yellowing. And that's a sign of sudden death syndrome. Can be confused with brown stem rot, but this year we're seeing a lot of sudden death syndrome. Luckily, it's late enough in the season where will it affect yield? Absolutely. Is it going to be a significant yield decrease? No, not really. What can we do about it? Plant late, but then we lose yield potential there. But there is a treatment called Alivo that works very well. And then there is actually a new treatment called Saltro that Syngenta's put out that also is going to be able to control that. So today we're talking about soybeans and what we're seeing out there with sudden death syndrome and early maturation, or just the process of that soybean getting finished. I'm actually standing in a soybean field outside of Wadena, Iowa this morning for Northeast Iowa. This is Nick Benson with Federal Hybrids.